In today's episode, I'm going to share with you how to clean up your Pinterest pins. In case you've missed this is part 3 of a 3-part series I've been doing all about how to clean up your Pinterest account. I'm Emily Vales, I'm a Pinterest marketing expert and coach, and for the past 5.5 years, I've helped my clients and my students increase their traffic and turn it into profit through the power of Pinterest marketing. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about all things cleaning up your Pinterest pins. And this series has been fun, especially in the spirit of spring, just around the corner, talking about all things spring cleaning. But I just want to reiterate, it doesn't matter what point in the year it is always important to be going in and making sure that your account is fully optimized for the search engine, because Pinterest is a search engine. And in order to be discovered by your target audience, the audience that you want to be serving, that's going to take action on your content, you need to use the right keywords that they are searching for. So you are going to be essentially showcasing your content with those keywords and offering the perfect solution to their problem. And that increases their chances, of course, of taking action on your content. So one thing I wanted to mention today before we get into cleaning up those Pinterest pins, and I will say we are actually going to be taking a look at my Pinterest account. I'm a very visual learner. I'm a visual teacher. So I want to actually show you what that looks like on my account, what I'm looking for, what I'd recommend. Before I share that, I actually wanted to share a little bit of information on the Pinterest sales funnel. Now, I like to call this the Pinterest sales funnel because it's essentially the series of actions your audience is taking in order to get to your website. One thing that is so amazing about Pinterest and what really makes it unique from social media is that Pinterest users are primed to leave the platform in order to get more information, in order to get the solution that they're looking for. Whereas social media, of course, social media is amazing for business owners. You will never hear me say otherwise, but it does in fact serve a different purpose. And the very nature of Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, they want to be keeping the user on their platform. Whereas Pinterest, the user has always been primed to leave the platform in order to get that solution. So that is one of the many reasons why Pinterest is so powerful for business owners. But there are a series of steps that take place prior to that audience or your potential client, that potential lead, getting to your website. So I want to share this because all of this comes into play with optimizing your account, your profile, the boards, the pins, and it's all important. So the first action the Pinterest user takes when they come to the platform, they're going up to the search bar. Typically, they're going up to the search bar and they're typing in keywords. They're typing in what they want to know more about, what they need inspiration on. They have a problem and they're actively looking for a solution. So that's really step 1 of the Pinterest sales funnel. Step 2 is then they're going to see pins come up. Those pins are going to visually capture them and they're going to decide what is inspiring, what do I want more of? What do I have to leave the platform in order to get this solution? Now, they can do a few different things. They can scroll past the pin. They can click on the pin to make it larger. They can save the pin for later, which does indicate to the Pinterest algorithm a high intent and that this content is high quality. So that's important to get those saves. Or the third thing that they can do, they can leave the platform to get more information. Now, of course, if they're leaving Pinterest, then they are really interested in this solution that you're offering. Now, of course, that solution, it could be a free training. So it's a lead magnet. It could be a product. It could be a blog post. That's the beauty of it, is that depending on our business objectives and goals for Pinterest, we can decide where we want to drive our audience. And once again, Pinterest is just so powerful for business owners. If you can't tell, I'm very passionate about helping you utilize Pinterest so that you can see these results. And also, side note, once you have optimized your account, you understand your keywords, you get into a rhythm and routine, and you have a system and a process, this doesn't need to take you more than a couple hours an entire week. So maybe on Monday, I might spend 2 hours on my Pinterest. I can sit back and relax for the next week. Very different than social media. So once again, side note there, I'm just very passionate about Pinterest. So back to the sales funnel. Step 1, search using the keywords. Step 2, they're seeing what pins are visually capturing them. Step 3, they're typically then leaving the platform depending on what they're wanting, what is going to offer the best solution. So step 2, you can see with the pins and what's visually capturing them, you could have the best content, the best products in the world, but if your pin doesn't speak to your audience, it doesn't hook them in and make them feel like, ooh, this is so good, I need more of this, then you're losing them. So that pin design, what you're using, whether it's a standard pin, a video pin, whether you have text overlay or maybe you don't have text overlay, all of that is important. And one thing that is really helpful when you're doing keyword research for your business is to actually pay attention to the top ranking pins when you're doing your keyword research. So if you've never done that, I highly recommend doing your keyword research, paying attention to what other creators are doing and what's working well for them. And side note, the top ranking pins would just be the pins that you're seeing surface at the very top of specific searches. Now, I'm not ever encouraging to copy anybody else, but just see, are they using video? Do they have text overlay? Maybe they don't have text overlay. Those are some of the things that you want to pay attention to. I do have another YouTube video all about keyword research. So if you want to check that out, I would love for you to learn more about doing the keyword research. And I think that's going to be really helpful with this entire spring cleaning series, where you are cleaning up your Pinterest account and strengthening areas that maybe are a little weak or have gone unnoticed in the past. So we are going to now go ahead and we're going to check out my Pinterest account, because I am going to share what I am assessing, what I'm looking at, what I could change or tweak and optimize and essentially clean up. But also, when you do this assessment and you're doing this cleanup, depending on, I'm not saying that maybe you have 11,000 pins on your account. Do you have to go back to every single pin and re-optimize it? No, I don't believe that's the best use of your time. Now, if you have a ton of broken links because a redirect isn't working, that's a different story. But I do want you to just go back and assess them, see and check if things are working and linking properly. And when you do this assessment, this can also help you think about, take notes, and plan for things that you could be doing better in the future. I think that all business owners get busy and we get caught up in the routine, and it's hard to always dive into our analytics and think about what we could be changing. But when you are sitting down and you're doing this cleanup and you're taking the time to make these assessments, then you can implement changes and test things moving forward. So I want you to be thinking about that this doesn't mean you're necessarily going in and editing every pin. That would be really overwhelming, and like I said, probably not the best use of our time, but you could be implementing this moving forward so that you improve your strategy and the results. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive over to my Pinterest account. Okay, so we're inside my Pinterest account, and we're essentially going to be assessing our pins, doing a mini audit, and not necessarily going back and editing every single pin, but like I mentioned, assessing what we've been doing and what we could potentially adjust, correct, do better in the future. Now, I do want to mention, if you have a major error with your pins, for example, they are incorrectly linking and a lot of your pins are broken, meaning that when people go to the link that is associated with that pin, they're getting an error or a 404, that's a problem. So I had a client and I did a Pinterest account cleanup, and it took me hours upon hours. And it wasn't the board cleanup or the profile cleanup, which if you want to learn more about cleaning up your Pinterest profile, editing your profile name, your bio, the cover photo, I do have videos that's part of this cleanup series. That would be part of the part 1, and then the part 2 is specifically over cleaning up your boards. So if you want to watch those YouTube episodes, I will link those in the description of this video. But with the account cleanup I was doing for her, she knew, and so she was able to fill me in on this information, that a lot of her pins were broken, meaning that they weren't linking correctly. And part of that was because I believe she had, I can't remember if she had Blogspot or something where she had her website. And I believe she had set up a WordPress, and that's not uncommon for somebody to set up their website in one place and then they decide to set it up someplace else, such as in WordPress or something that's, robust or maybe has more functionality, whatever the reason may be, doesn't matter. And so that's not uncommon, but it becomes an issue if the redirect isn't working or those pins do all become broken. So she was very adamant about wanting me to go in and edit every single pin. When you have a lot of pins, this could take you hours upon hours. So ideally, it's important to just have, if you do need to have redirects in place, that the redirect is working, but you could let them sit there and just know that they're not going to perform well. They're not going to be probably distributed. It kind of depends on, of course, she didn't want to do that herself, so she paid me to do that. And I did, I was very upfront about the fact that this is going to take a long time and this is going to take a lot longer than if I were cleaning up pins on any other account. And typically when I'm doing an account cleanup, I am checking pins, but most of the time I'm looking for things that could be edited or changed or updated, but there's not this massive overhaul where you're going through every single pin. If you have thousands of pins on your account, I truly don't believe it's the best use of your time to go back and edit every single pin. So when I'm thinking about cleaning up my account, I do like to make sure that pins are, going to the right places, especially if I've made a change. And I have done that in the past where I had a free training I was really pushing people to, and that training, I'm not really pushing people there anymore. And that funnel is actually not working. And the video training was hosted in EasyWebinar, and now I don't even use EasyWebinar. So I actually just recently talked to my assistant about we need to get a redirect set up in place for this specific link. So when you have those things on your radar, you can kind of avoid going through every single pin, because that just becomes, it really starts taking a painstakingly long amount of time. So when I'm thinking about doing my cleanup, I really do like to assess my pins and think about, are there some minor tweaks I could be making? Do my pins have keyword optimized titles? Do they have descriptions? Could I add a description? Could I update a description? And it's one of those things where if you go back and edit a pin, it's going to essentially reset the stats on that pin. So for example, when we're looking here at my Pinterest account, let's say this one that says repurposing TikTok content for Pinterest. If I go in and I edit this and I change the description or I change the link and then I click save, it's going to reset those stats to 0, 0, 0, 0 impressions, 0 saves, 0 clicks. And it's one of those things where, it's challenging because yes, those pins do continue to live on Pinterest, but when people are clicking on a link and it's broken, they're probably not going to save it. They're going to click off of it. It is going to start to impact the performance of that pin. So especially if you have pins that are performing well, of course, you want to make sure that those are fully optimized. And it's so crazy where I've had clients where they might not even have a great pin description for a pin and the pin performs well. There's interesting things that happen. Even with pin design, sometimes I have clients where they have this pin, and we like to call them legacy pins, where this pin brings them traffic literally year over year, which is one of the things that is the beauty of Pinterest, that pins can continue to live on and bring you traffic. But sometimes they're really unattractive, and maybe they've even rebranded and it was one of the first pins they ever made. And they just are very unhappy with the fact that that pin performs well, and they're kind of embarrassed that it continues to live on Pinterest. If it's bringing you traffic, the link works, it's getting people to your website, it's getting people to your products. Who cares if it's unattractive? So when you're thinking about this cleanup, I don't want you to do this mass deletion of pins. I really like to think about the pin cleanup almost as an assessment, an audit, looking for things that you could do better in the future. I really am not a huge fan of deleting pins, because even if it's not the most attractive thing, or maybe you could stand to use better keywords on the text overlay, I don't find that it's the best use of time to go back and edit older pins. Could it help the performance and the way it was indexed? It could, but I think it's a better use to implement those changes and really improve your strategy moving forward. But sometimes we don't even know what we need to correct, if there is anything we should correct if we're not doing this assessment and thinking about it as a cleanup and almost like a refresh and a reset. And of course, I shared that this series is in the spirit of spring cleaning, but this is something that is important to do any time of the year. It doesn't matter if it's spring, summer, winter, fall, that you are assessing things and seeing what you could do better. I recently, my personal stats have been going down, and I could definitely be more intentional, to be totally honest, about my consistency, creating more video content, doing a little bit more testing. And I actually was kind of going through seeing what were some of the top ranking pins within my niche and really kind of deciding, okay, there's some design tweaks I could be testing and trying and implementing some new designs with my pins. So those are things to think about. And that doesn't mean I went through and deleted older pins or changed anything out, but just thought about what I could even be doing better. So I kind of like to think about, okay, have I made any major changes in my business that is going to impact where pins are directed? If yes, think about those pins. I do have a document. I use Airtable, and it really helps me organize my pins. It has the specific links. So like I mentioned, I have that free training, and I knew that those pins were all directing to this free training, and I updated it and I needed to redirect. Well, I have the descriptions for each of the unique pins, the titles, the images, but it's really nice because I have all the images and the link it's associated with. So it helps me kind of speed up the process. So I'm not trying to kind of pick through and like, is it linked here? Is it not? I have a document where I've organized that. So that's something I do for my clients, what I teach my Pinterest manager students to do that for their clients. So that if you hired one of my students, then you have that peace of mind knowing that they have everything very organized. So if anything ever changed, you could even plan ahead in the future and make sure that, okay, we know that we're changing this. These pins and these links do need to be updated. And it's one of those things where if you change the link or you update the description or the title, do I think it's going to make a huge impact on the performance of the pin? I don't think it's going to make a huge impact. But if the link isn't properly working, that would be good to go and update that. The title, the description, those are things where, if you go back and update it, it might make a little difference, but I think it's better to focus on fresh pins moving forward and just creating new content with that strategy in mind, whether you've done, keyword research more recently, or like I said, I was even just paying attention to top ranking pins and decided I wanted to make some updates to my pin design. So what I would recommend doing is, thinking through any changes you've made in your business, and then also going through your boards. And this is something that when you're thinking about cleaning up your boards, and I shared that's the part 2 of this 3-part series in cleaning up your Pinterest account. So if you want to watch that episode, go back to last week's episode, and I can also link that here. But, I'm really going through talking about how to update your board titles, your board descriptions. But I really want you in this week's episode, when you're thinking about your pins, I want you to zoom in even more and be looking at each specific board and think about, are most of the pins on this board my pins? If not, that content bucket, that board might not really serve as much of a purpose, as you thought it did. And that's okay. But I want you to be assessing those pins. I also want you, and it's nice because you can see the stats on your pins. When you're assessing your pins, even if maybe you aren't per se editing them, cleaning them up, do an assessment and see, okay, what are my top performing pins? I can see the stats on each of my pins. Am I seeing a theme here of the ones that are the top performing? I'm noticing on this board, Pinterest Tips for Business, I have no video pins. I could be creating more video pins, and I create a lot of video content, and I could be taking my TikTok content, my Instagram content, and I'm not going to link to Instagram or TikTok, but I could be repurposing that video and linking it to relevant products, relevant blog posts. Of course, it needs to be highly relevant to wherever you're linking it, but my content is relevant to blog posts and products. That's why I'm talking about it on social media. So I'm seeing here on this board, just really quickly, I could be doing a lot more video content. So when I'm looking at my top performing pins, these ones honestly that I'm scrolling over right now are not, they're ones that did not perform very well, not getting a lot of reach whatsoever. So now it's almost like a needle in a haystack
finding one that performed better. So here's a few video pins, and actually, interestingly enough, they don't really appear to have gotten a lot of reach. That's something else that is important to test as well. And we kind of go through waves. Every platform is always changing, evolving. And at one point, my video content performed so well. And I don't, whatever algorithm changed, whenever Pinterest made that announcement about moving away from idea pins and just having all pins, that I noticed impacted my video content, which was really interesting. So anyways, do an assessment, see what you could be changing, take notes, write things down. I want you to be looking at, though, you can think of it as kind of a checklist. I want you to go through your boards and decide. So when you're thinking about the pins, are most of the pins on this board my pins? Then I want you to be thinking about standard pins versus video pins, because I do teach diversifying your content formats. So standard would be a static image, video would be a video. Do I have video and static pins on my boards? Do my pins have the keywords I want to be ranking for? Or did I just kind of create them haphazardly? Or on the flip side, depending on my niche, photography, fashion/style, sometimes they don't have keywords at all. You're looking at those more granular, zoomed in details of your pins. And these are things that we don't always pay attention to on a weekly or even necessarily a monthly basis sometimes, especially if we don't have a Pinterest manager and we don't have somebody who's paying attention to some of those details. So I want you to be looking at, like I said, types of content, standard versus video. Are the pins even yours to begin with? Have you made any big changes? Do you need to check the links? I know that I have made some changes, and that would affect where some of my pins were linking. The next thing, like I said, checking the text overlay. Are you using keywords? Checking the pin titles, the pin descriptions. Those are some of the specifics that you need to be looking for when you're going through and really auditing your pins. And like I said, if you're going to take the time to clean them up, for sure, it would really pertain to broken links mostly. I really want you to think about how you can improve your pins moving forward when you're thinking about cleaning up your pins. And because, like, for me, I have, thousands and thousands of pins. It doesn't make sense. It's not the best use of my time to go back and be editing every single pin, right? That just wouldn't make sense. So I do think, though, that what you can gather information, taking notes, moving forward, that for sure can impact your strategy. And just keep in mind too that whatever changes you make, you're not going to see a difference in your analytics overnight. Pinterest is a search engine. It takes time to see results. It takes time to see the impacts of you updating your strategy and maybe incorporating video content. What are going to be the lasting effects from going from no video content to implementing video content? So that could be, you would probably want to give it, honestly, anywhere from 45 to as long as 90 days to see if that made a difference. Otherwise, in terms of Pinterest, you're just not giving enough time. I've shared this example so many times, but I had a pin that I created in November of 2021. Did nothing, fine, whatever, it happens. June, July of 2022, that summer, I have a pin taking off and I see my stats continue to go up, and it's all, because of this specific pin. I go back, it was that pin that I had created in November of 2021. And when I first published the pin, it hadn't really done anything. So it just goes to show you that that's the beauty of Pinterest. Just because something doesn't perform well right away, that doesn't mean that the content is dead or it totally fell flat. A lot of times it just means that, maybe it hasn't had enough time to be indexed and it hasn't had enough time to gain traction. So just a few things to keep in mind. So I'm going to stop here. I think that you have enough to kind of think through when you're thinking about cleaning up your Pinterest. Remember, I said this is really the third video in this three-part series. So I went over your account, your profile, and then your boards. And then today we're discussing looking at pins specifically. So I want you to go and apply this to your account. And if you are looking at becoming a Pinterest manager, you can be thinking about these are some of the things, that you would be doing, whether you were performing an account audit or if you were going to do an account cleanup. And there's things that you want to talk through with business owners or things you want to be looking for. So whatever you are looking for, depending on if you're a business owner or a Pinterest manager, I do have a shop if you're a business owner and you are looking for Pinterest resources over keyword research, Pinterest ads, I have a quick start, like 3-step system to automated sales on Pinterest. That would be helpful. And then if you're thinking about becoming a Pinterest manager, I do have a couple of free resources on how to start your Pinterest management business. So be sure to check those out. Those will be linked in my video as well. So let's go ahead and wrap up this episode.
I hope you found this episode helpful and not overwhelming with your Pinterest pins, but just supportive of your Pinterest strategy. And maybe you're making a few tweaks now, but really helping you plan for what you could be doing better in the future so that you can get the absolute best results from Pinterest. So if you haven't already watched the part 1 and 2, which cover your Pinterest profile / account optimization, optimizing your Pinterest boards, I would love for you to go back and watch those episodes. And I would be so honored if you would subscribe to my channel and let me know in the comments what questions you have, what you thought of this video. That really helps support me and continue to come back week after week to serve you. So like I said, be sure to leave those comments, like this video, and I can't wait to see you soon in next week's video. Bye for now, friends.